What do you do when your apartment charges you for something you don't need? When I first moved out on my own in the early 2000s, I rented an apartment in a large complex that charged extra for assigned parking. If you didn't pay the extra $25 a month, you had to search for a spot on the street every day, and the street was always crowded. Since my apartment was at the far back of the complex and I was recovering from a knee and ankle injury, I didn't want to walk long distances while carrying bags or climbing stairs. So even though my car was old, rusty, and barely hanging on, I paid for the assigned parking space because it was close to my door. As a young adult just starting life, having any working car at all made me feel independent. About 3 months after moving in, my old car finally died for good. The repair cost was more than the car was worth. By that time, I had learned how to use the bus system and also discovered a small nearby grocery store that offered low-cost home delivery. This was long before grocery delivery became common, so it saved me a lot of time and effort. I realized I didn't need a car anymore since my job paid for my bus pass, so I went to the leasing office and politely asked them to remove the parking fee from my rent. The woman at the desk was new and seemed confused because no one had asked that before. She promised to check with her supervisor and get back to me. I assumed it would be simple and expected the charge to disappear the next month, but when I received my bill, the parking fee was still there. I paid everything except the parking charge and called again. She answered and said she still hadn't received approval, but she gave me a one-time credit as a courtesy. I reminded her that I didn't have a car anymore and that my space had been empty for almost a month. She said she understood clearly and would make sure it was fixed by next month. 3 days before the next rent cycle, she finally called back with an answer. The news was terrible. She said the parking space was written into my lease and could not be removed unless I broke my lease and signed a brand new one. Even if I stayed in the same apartment, I would be charged lease-breaking fees and then forced into the new market rent, which was higher by more than $1,000. As someone living alone for the first time, I couldn't afford that. So I had no choice but to keep paying for the parking space I no longer needed. About 3 weeks later, I was flipping through my lease to look for the maintenance number when I noticed a detail I had completely missed. The contract said I could park a motorcycle, scooter such as a Vespa, car, truck, SUV, or trailer in my spot. That one word, trailer, sparked an idea that changed everything. The rules didn't say anything about the kind or purpose of the trailer. It only had to have wheels and stay within the lines. I went online to a local classified site and found a small wheeled storage container, basically a shipping container mounted on a trailer base. It cost a bit more than I wanted, but compared to storage shed rental prices, it was a good investment. I didn't have much to store, but my neighbor did. I locked the container and offered him the space for only $35 a month, far cheaper than the $100 plus he was paying at a storage facility across town. He jumped at the offer and paid several months in advance. The apartment complex was not happy. They put multiple tow warnings on the trailer, but I contacted the tow company myself and faxed them the lease clause showing trailers were allowed. The trailer was legally registered, so they couldn't touch it. Then management tried to fine me for improper parking, but I had all the documents proving I was within my rights. At one point, they even offered to remove the parking charge from my rent if I agreed to move the trailer out, but since my neighbor's monthly payment covered my water bill, I turned them down. I stayed there for 18 months. When I moved out, I sold the trailer to my neighbor for a small amount. He rented a truck to move it to his own assigned spot and said it was still worth every dollar. He ended up saving over $1,000 a year. Soon, other residents brought in their own trailers and containers too. Some even rented extra parking spaces just to use them as storage. So many storage sheds were being emptied that the complex began offering 6 months free, but hardly anyone accepted. Eventually, the complex rewrote the new leases to ban trailers completely, but they couldn't change the leases people already had. To keep their rights, renters started transferring their leases to new tenants, so the trailer clause continued. About 2 years after I moved out, I drove past the complex on my way to a friend's house for Thanksgiving. The place had a new name and new owners, but I still saw a row of wheeled storage containers proudly sitting in the parking lot, proving that one small loophole had changed everything.